What is up? Happy Red Friday to all of you out there in Chiefs Kingdom. It's Dan and Trey with the Fastest 40 presented by Odyssey Sports. Man, New Orleans Saints coming to town for Monday Night Football. Chiefs are 4-0. A lot going on here in Kansas City with some playoff baseball. It's a good time to be a sports fan here in the town, my brother.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Primetime ball is back in Kansas City once again. So here we go, Saints. I looking at the schedule preseason. I really didn't think this was going to be a good game or a big game, but Saints have shown that they got a lights out offense, inconsistent but lights out. So it'd be exciting to watch.
Yeah, I mean they've really been showing up. We can talk a little more about their team here in a minute, but they've really been showing up well in their games for the most part. Maybe falling a little bit down to earth in the last couple, so that makes it something I think the Chiefs are going to be able to manage just fine. Um, let's start this by just touching on Rashee Rice, right? As of today, we're recording this on Wednesday. So hopefully by the time everyone's listening to this, the Royals have advanced to the ALDS.
Yes.
I just now thought of that. But as of today, Rashee Rice still no firm resolution on that knee injury, no confirmed ACL tear, no confirmed injury of any kind. The only thing that is known is that he will not be returning to action this weekend. October, maybe still on the table. November, still on the table. December on the table. And obviously, the playoffs are a possibility as well until we know what the speculation is that I've seen. And I'll let you kind of speak on this here in a second, too. But I've seen that the swelling in his knee has prevented maybe a few tests that they want to see how it goes after that swelling goes down, see what they're able to get back from a results standpoint. But I think no news is good news right now.
Yeah, this is one of the most odd injury reports, injury situations with a player that I've seen in years, man. I can't think of one that's this unique, maybe other than like the Eric Berry situation, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting to see what comes of it. I think it is promising the fact that we haven't heard anything yet. Usually the ACL tears, you get reports of that next morning. Monday morning, you play Sunday, Monday morning, confirmed ACL tear, out for season, etc. See you back
Right.
in August next year. But this has kind of got hope. Hopefully it's something along the lines of a bone bruise or a sprain or whatever it may be, and we get Rashee Rice back a little bit sooner than what the worst case scenario would be, which would be an ACL tear and or multiple tears, and not see him until early on next season. So obviously, looking at the Chiefs team, this was a disaster. I mean, this is an awful point, awful player to lose as looking at it from a football, success standpoint. Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown both being out potentially for the full season is scary as a Chiefs fan. And but also it's a same situation as what we saw last year, next man up, and man, I'm hoping for that news next week is good news. 4 weeks out would be fantastic news.
Yeah. That would be huge. That would be huge. I just want to know what's going on with this situation, what's gonna happen with Rashee Rice, and ultimately have at least some sort of understanding of how you can prepare as a fan. Um, for this offense and whether or not you need to be kind of puckered up when the receivers take the field or whether you can have some confidence in
Yep.
in those guys that are catching passes from Patrick Mahomes. So, we'll keep talking about it as the news rolls in, but as of right now, nothing new on Rashee Rice. Just hoping that his recovery goes well first and foremost. Um, real quick, the Saints, this game before we get into the injury report, I thought this was interesting. This game is seeing a lot of reunions of sorts, right? It seems like basically any free agent that leaves Kansas City on the defensive side of the ball goes to New Orleans at some point or another. Colin Saunders made his way down there. Willie Gay most recently. Tano Passagnon's still down there. Tyrann Mathieu, of course, generating a turnover in each and every week of the season so far. But the most interesting reunion, I think, is going to be the Chiefs facing Derek Carr again.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I think there's going to be some elevated noise just for that fact. Outside of the elevation from primetime game, Monday Night Football, etc. There's going to be, but I personally, there's a level of respect I have for Derek Carr. I think he plays the game the right way,
Mm,
and he seems to be a good human. So that
good
makes
teammate.
things different for me. You get a I'm trying to think of somebody where if they went to a different team, like no respect, I'm just giving them hell when they show up to Arrowhead, no matter what jersey they got on. But not
Yeah,
necessarily Carr for Derek
Steven
Carr.
Nelson is a guy that comes to mind for that.
Yeah, yeah. Eli Apple.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. 100% you're gonna torch Eli Apple a little bit. Give him some noise. Any Bengals player, really, anyone that's been on
yeah,
that team in particular, they deserve all the noise
yep. I think
whenever they make their way into Arrowhead.
I think Willie Gay is out for the game though. Unfortunately, he had something going on with a leg midway through the game last week, and he's not going to be able to play this weekend, which is unfortunate. I was a big Willie Gay fan when he was in Kansas City. Really want to keep him. I like the depth that we had last year at linebacker, but I was
Yeah.
looking forward to playing him for sure.
No, I mean a lot of these guys. I mean, we may not play a team with more Arrowhead experience than the New Orleans Saints
Yeah.
this entire year. Just the guys who played with the Chiefs, and then obviously Derek Carr starting his career for the first damn near decade, playing in Arrowhead two times or once a year, playing the Chiefs two times a year.
Yep.
So these are guys that are going to be used to the noise factor, and they're going to have plenty of familiarity. And I think that familiarity you can almost chalk it up on the same tier as a divisional game. Because Derek Carr is bringing in that knowledge from a defensive standpoint, having faced Spagnuolo's defense multiple times over. And
Yep.
then those guys on the defensive side of the ball, they obviously have faced Patrick Mahomes in practice and in multiple training camps and won titles together.
Yep.
So they know the tendencies of a lot of the guys that are taking the field. So that's going
Good
to be
point.
something that's interesting for sure.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, that's something I didn't think about having reps against Patrick Mahomes, who has obviously not been himself so far this season.
Right.
And so if they can key on some of those little knickknack, things that Patrick does and kind of gives away a pass or a pre-read, pre-play read or whatever it may be, that'll be interesting to see how they react off that.
Absolutely. It'll be something to watch for sure. Dennis Allen, also a former Raiders coach himself, so just another layer in the cake of the Monday Night Football matchup against the Saints. Let's take it to the injury report, right? There's not a ton to report here for Kansas City outside of obviously Rashee Rice, which we've touched on. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe worth mentioning, he's set to return from the NFL. I think is the NFL illness list, NFLI. I don't know. I think that's how they run it. It's just one you don't see a lot of players on. Um, but he's set to return from that. Other than that, Mike Dana, somebody to monitor on the defensive end side of things. I know we had FAU um, taking starting reps for Kansas City last week. Charles Omenihu, another guy to watch over the next couple weeks. Not
Yep.
expecting him to play this weekend, but he seems to be coming along really well in his recovery. So that's something that will be a big boost for the Chiefs defense to get him back. On the Saints side of things, you mentioned Willie Gay already. He missed last week as well. A couple of other guys to really keep an eye on. Chris Olave was hampered last week with a hamstring injury. Um, Alvin Kamara was nursing a few things. Taysom Hill exited midway through last week's game for New Orleans. So those are all guys that are key playmakers that could potentially miss some snaps in this game, whether they're on a pitch count or whether they miss the game entirely. Um, it's worth watching, especially if you've got any of these guys on your fantasy team. Not to take it too far down that rabbit hole, but Monday Night Football, man, you don't want to have any of those guys in your lineup come Monday night.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
gonna
yeah. That's always so stressful, dude. Like, man, I gotta pick somebody. It's 11 o'clock, 11 a.m. Sunday morning. You're like,
right,
damn, who do I take? And like, everybody's starting in an hour. I have to make a decision. But
right.
yeah,
No, that's one of those things where when you're managing as many leagues as I am, it's like you got to put in a full hour to do your research on what's going on. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Let's take it to the game, man. Let's take it to the game and see what the Chiefs have to do to get the win. Um, really, I think it starts with the defensive side of the ball, right? Whether or not they're going to continue to maintain that level of play and really capitalize on the mistakes I think the crowd is going to cause this offense to make. I mean, it's going to be a discipline battle for them first and foremost, right? Whether or not they can overcome the noise that's going to be coming down from the fans in Arrowhead, not jump off sides, call the right plays, line up in the right spots, not burn timeouts. And I think the defense, they just have to capitalize on that, whether it's, you know, taking an unblocked pressure and finishing the pressure for a sack, or a miscommunication on a route and capitalizing on that with a turnover. While the Chiefs' defense has been bend don't break for a large period of time, I think they're going to need to capitalize on those things to really push this thing forward because the Saints, I mean, at the end of the day, they're a quality team.
yeah. Agreed. And to kind of tack onto that thought, there is going to go into the offense a little bit with fundamental football. So injuries are piling up. We've talked about it several times that the Chiefs are only going to beat the Chiefs, and injuries are going to be a part of that, right? So as this continues, we have to focus on making sure our penalties are limited, turnovers are limited. We're flipping the field when necessary. When it comes to special teams, and we're making smart decisions on the football field. So it's got to be a disciplined football game. If we continue to have mistakes like we've seen through the first 4 weeks, now granted we're 4-0, right? But if we make those mistakes without these key players, these are going to come back and cause a loss to a team like the Saints that we should absolutely beat. So I think if I'm Andy Reid, I'm head coach this week. I think that is getting reinforced several times a day. Take care of the football, make sure you're in the right place at the right time. You're not causing penalties. And,
Yep.
and if we do that, then we are a better football team than New Orleans, and we will win this football game. So for me, it starts with the fundamentals. It starts with discipline. If this team can come out and do that, then we'll come away with a dub.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where it's like, I feel like sometimes you and I both come on the show and it's like, don't beat yourselves, because I feel like that's kind of like what the Chiefs have to avoid. But when you're the premier team in the league, back-to-back champion, like that's what's expected of you. And I don't feel like the Chiefs have truly been beaten by a team in a long time, right?
Yeah,
Currently, the NFL's longest win streak dating back to last season. The last time they were actually beat by a team where they didn't, ultimately hand them the game with turnovers and whatnot. Um, I mean, I can't even put maybe the Titans whenever they beat the Chiefs like 27-3 or something 2 years ago. Because most of the time when the Chiefs are losing the game, it's undisciplined mistakes, it's turnovers. Like we
yep,
saw it last year, both times when, or I guess you can give the Bills the credit for that last year, right? That win that actually looked quality, but they lost games to the Raiders and the Broncos, and in those games in particular, there were key moments related to turnovers or penalties that totally flipped the script of that game to put it in. I mean, the Raiders didn't complete a pass
Yeah, right.
in the second half, and the Chiefs lost that game because of critical turnovers and allowing the defense to capitalize on that. So I love that's the biggest thing that we as fans have to worry about is whether or not the Chiefs are going to show up or not, because we all know that if they show up, they can beat 31 other teams in the league.
Agreed. Agreed 100%. Now, moving on to the Saints, though, and this is super important. It kind of goes along the same thread there. That if the Chiefs create those opportunities, and this was a point last week for the Chargers game, right? If the Chiefs create those opportunities, it's capitalizing on them. We saw the
Yeah.
first two drives of the game last week against the Chargers, where those two turnovers turned into 10 points, and the rest of the game nothing, right? So we know the defense can play the long ball or play long ball, not necessarily the deep pass, but play a long drive and hold somebody in the red zone or at the 30 or force a field goal wherever on the field. But if you start with that short field, and we saw it with Cincinnati as well, then those chances and those odds of you being successful on that drive raise that much higher, right? So for the Saints, it's got to be capitalized on those opportunities. If you get the strip sack, you got to fall on it. Or if you get
Right.
the 4th and 1 and the Chiefs want to go for it at their own 45, then you have to capitalize on that, and you have to stop Kareem Hunt from barreling forward and getting that 1 yard, right? So
Good luck with
for me,
that.
yeah, right, or Carson Steele, right?
Right.
For me, Saints, they got to capitalize on the mistakes if and when they're made, and if they're not made by the Chiefs, you have to create those opportunities yourself.
No, I think that's all good points too, right? Like there's a couple things I think the Saints have done really well that I think if they continue this, they'll do well. And I think they've been able to get Alvin Kamara going really well, both in the pass and the run game this year. He's had some very quality touches, including an explosion. I think it was like a 4 touchdown game um, in one of the first 2 or 3 games of the season. And then additionally to that, it's been the defensive ability to do what you were talking about just a minute ago, and it's turn the ball over. Tyrann Mathieu, I talked about earlier. If he can sustain that streak and they generate 1, 2 turnovers and win the turnover battle, although the Chiefs have lost the turnover battle in most of the games this year, I think that swings the odds in your favor quite a bit if you're the New Orleans Saints. So if they can continue doing that, they'll be in good shape. Something I think they need to avoid or maybe fix is how well they can get Chris Olave involved in the offense. He's been kind of non-existent. They're not going to have Taysom Hill potentially. That's a guy who's been super dynamic in those goal line situations for New Orleans. So they're going to have to find other ways to score potentially in the red zone. And I think if they can figure that out against a premier bend don't break defense like what the Chiefs have, then they'll be in good shape if they're not allowing the Chiefs to turn those sevens into threes like they tend to do, right? And so I think those are going to be key elements for them to put together a win and steal one from Arrowhead. But man, I like the Chiefs' chances, even without a receiving core uh,
Yep.
that gives you, confidence or strikes fear into the other teams of the league. Travis Kelce looked good finally. I think it kind of forced the Chiefs into getting him the ball a little bit more, and he had some really great catches and some great plays. So Noah Gray too, man. Noah Gray had a great game last week with a couple key plays. So um, hope to see them keep it pushing. Now, quick picks. We'll touch on this before we wrap it up and get you to your weekend. Chiefs, as it stands Wednesday, according to ESPN, are 5.5 point favorites. The point total 43.5 points. I could honestly see this going up from a total standpoint as the injury reports sort of sort themselves out. Maybe a point or a half point roughly. I don't know how much the spread is going to change on this game, but I got to run with Kansas City covering in this game, and I'm actually going to take the under here.
Whoo, doozy. That's a doozy, bud.
I think there's two really good defenses. I think we don't know what's going to happen with injuries as it stands right now. The Chiefs last week went into a game with two offenses that have the ability to put up points, and it was 17-10 in that particular game. The Falcons game, not a high scoring affair there either, with two offenses that are capable of it. I think this is going to be a repeat of what we saw last year, some low scoring tight games. And while I think the Chiefs win by a touchdown, I don't think it's more than a 20-13 type of game.
Sure. Yeah. No, I hear you. I'm halfway there with you. I got Kansas City -5.5. I actually love that. I could see a 6 point game. I could also see the 7 point game as well. I could see New Orleans defense stopping us a couple times and a couple Harrison Butker field goals, creating that 6 point lead. But I like the over here. 43.5 is pretty low for me. I could easily see the Saints get up to 17, 21 points with us covering the rest of that. So I like the over here. Even though with the injuries and everything going on, I think there's a heavy run presence from the Chiefs this weekend. And I think we're going to see some guys and really some play calling really get expanded here in what this offense can do. And I think that's going to create confusion for the Saints on defense. I think that's going to create opportunity for the Chiefs on offense. So I think we still see a normal scoreboard when it comes to the Chiefs, 28, 31, 24, somewhere around there. But I like the over here.
Okay. I mean, maybe the injury report shakes out and I feel differently after that, but um, yeah, may the best man win.
The Chiefs.
Go Chiefs. That's all I care about.
Yeah, that's right,
Chiefs.
baby.
I think anyone that knows me knows I don't bet on Chiefs games. So,
Yeah.
um, Trey, I mean, I'm ready. I'm ready for some Monday Night Football, man. Sucks you're not gonna be there with your boy, but gonna be a whole family affair celebrating mom's 50th out there, and then my brother's birthday is the day after, turning the double deuce. So
Very nice.
nice little family time at the Chiefs game at old
Yeah.
Arrowhead. So
Very nice.
appreciate everyone listening with us this week at the fastest_40 on the socials. You can catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube on the Odyssey Sports page. And of course, go Chiefs, baby. Happy Red Friday to everybody.
Let's go.
Peace.